They're finding billions, and it will be hundreds of billions of dollars worth of fraud. I say waste and abuse, but fraud, waste, and abuse. And he's doing an amazing job.
When these attacks occur, the thing that they're accusing the administration of is what they are guilty of. They're saying that things are being done unconstitutional, but what they are doing is unconstitutional. They are guilty of the crime of which they accuse us.
That's always the first thing they do.
Yeah.
He's in violation of the Constitution. They don't even know what they're talking. Well,
it's
they
absurd.
know. It's just a con job. It's a big con job.
The White House has not presented any solid evidence to support the president's claim that Musk and his allies have uncovered billions of dollars of fraud in federal government.
We couldn't find any evidence of payments to 150-year-olds from these reports.
Okay.
There were about 19 million people back around 2023 who were born in 1920 or before who didn't have death records in the system, so they just weren't updated for whatever reason. Now, 44,000 of them were still receiving payments. But there was no evidence given that any of them were 150 years old. Now, crucially, there is an automatic system within the Social Security Administration. They started bringing this in a few years ago. When you reach 115 years old, it cuts off your payments.
What could Elon Musk and President Trump be referring to here?
So this is really interesting. Elon Musk posted a screenshot of a database over the weekend, and people have had a lot of fun trying to figure out what this database could be. Now, this database claims to show evidence of people over 150 years old receiving payments. Now, there are two theories. We spoke to some experts, and there are two theories that seem to be the most plausible. One is, it's possible, we don't know what databases Doge actually has access to. So it's possible what he was looking at was a database of everyone who's ever been issued a Social Security number. So that wouldn't mean that they're receiving payments. It's just that they received a Social Security number and their death record was never put in. Another one, which is a little bit more wonky, but it also seems to be a little bit plausible, is that the Social Security Administration uses a very old programming code called COBOL. And essentially, there are a lot of people in the system who put in their information before any of these digital records. So their birth date isn't actually in the system. So if this old programming language doesn't have your birth date, it defaults your birth date to 1875, which would make you 150 years old this year. So that is one possible explanation. But we have said we have reached out to the White House and the Social Security Administration for any kind of evidence of this, and so far they haven't given it to us.
What is the Social Security Administration doing to crack down on fraud?
So they work a lot with local governments. They cross-check their databases. As I said, there's also an Office of the Inspector General whose whole job it is to go through their payments and make sure that they're updated. They've also brought in new systems, for example, that system of cutting off payments at 115. Also, if you reach over a certain age, now I don't know what age that is, but they start checking if people are still using their Medicaid benefits. So this would give some indication as well.
Ronna Tarrant, thank you.
Thank you.
The Social Security Administration is considering drastic new, what they call anti-fraud measures that could disrupt benefit payments to millions of Americans. This is according to an internal memo first obtained by the political newsletter Popular Information. Authored last week by Acting Deputy Social Security Administration Commissioner Doris Diaz, the changes proposed in the memo would force millions of customers to file claims in person at a field office rather than over the phone. According to the memo, customers applying for retirement and disability benefits would be required for the first time to verify their identity through an online system. If their identity can't be verified online, they would have to visit a field office in person. The memo estimates that 75,000 to 85,000 people per week would be diverted to field offices because of a large number of elderly and disabled adults do not have access to a computer or a smartphone and would be unable to complete the online identity verification requirement. The memo acknowledges the strain this would place on vulnerable populations and lists service disruption as well as legal challenges and congressional scrutiny among the risks of the proposed changes. A day before the memo was sent, the Washington Post reported Social Security Administration was considering ending telephone service for all claims under pressure from DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Hours after the Washington Post report came out, the agency issued a press release claiming telephone services would not be eliminated. The proposed changes to Social Security come as DOGE is targeting the agency for staff cuts of more than 12%. We're talking about a lot of these offices being closed or severely limited in staffing, and yet a deluge of people would be forced to go to these satellite offices, some of them already closed.
The reason that it's taking the Social Security Administration longer to process disability claims and too long to answer the phone and to make appointments with people is because there are already not enough staff members working at SSA. And that's because of years of underfunding. And so the Trump administration is actually moving to double down on those staff cuts. They're planning for another 7,000 staff cuts at the Social Security Administration this year. So what that's going to mean is fewer people answering the phones, fewer people taking appointments, fewer people processing claims. And that's going to mean longer delays in each one of those areas. And it's going to make it harder for applicants and beneficiaries to access their benefits. And it's not just beneficiaries either, but it's going to affect people who are trying to access their Social Security statement, people who need a replacement Social Security card because they're seeking a job or just got married. These services affect everyone.
I describe it to people this way. Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining. Anybody who's been in the payment system and the process system knows the easiest way to find the fraudster is to stop payments and listen.
Yeah.
Because whoever screams is the one stealing.
In there and see somebody face to face because they hang the phones up on you and everything.
They are very rude.
And if your paperwork ain't complete, by the time they need to do whatever they need to do, it seems like they cut you off.
To make an appointment or do so online, but many have shown up here not realizing walk-ins aren't allowed. Some have opted to wait in person to schedule an appointment, but those waits have been extra long, says one customer who didn't want us to show her face.
I was here yesterday and I saw the line and I went home. And so I came back early this morning thinking I'd be one of the first. I wasn't. And I still waited 45 minutes, but it was worth it.
Another change is that those waiting to make a future appointment are forced to stand in a line that sometimes stretches to or out the door. They're not being allowed into the building's waiting area, even though there are dozens of chairs. According to the head of SSA, it's supposed to streamline the process. The adjustment has been tough for customers. Some start calling once they see the signs.